Welcome back to A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University. We're visiting today with Greg Brooks. Greg, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Lane?
Fantastic. Tell me about yourself. Who you are, where you've been, what you've done.
Well, my name's Greg Brooks. I'm a lifetime resident of St. George. Grew up here, born and raised. I work at SkyWest Airlines. Been there about 16 years. Graduated Dixie High School, class of 1994. Pretty much Southern Utah, born and raised, bred, and my parents or grandparents are all from here too. So quite the history of Southern Utah in my family.
So you haven't been able to escape, huh?
I escaped for a few years. Lived up north, went on an LDS mission to Indiana, and I lived up in the Utah County and Salt Lake counties for a few years, working Zions Bank at the time and going to school up there. But back down here and just loving life.
What'd you do for Zions Bank?
I was in their training department. I actually worked a lot of different departments, but my biggest role was in their training department. I got to see a lot of Utah and Idaho, traveling around training tellers on our computer systems.
What do you do for SkyWest?
Right now I work in the Operational Control Center. I handle all of the fueling for SkyWest, all of our partners, fueling we fly for United and Delta and a couple of other carriers. And I help make sure that our contracts are followed and do all the flight planning with a large department in the office.
Well, that sounds exciting.
It is. It keeps me busy most days.
Tell me about your family.
Well, I'm married. My wife, Keisha, and I've been married our 10th anniversary is this year. I have 5 wonderful kids. My oldest is 17 and my youngest is 8. 3 boys and 2 girls, and all active in all kinds of different things, from dance to sports to band. You name it, we're going from one event to the other, seems like every day.
Keeps you busy.
Very busy.
What's your favorite fun thing to do?
I love being outdoors. Anything outdoors, whether it's hiking, hunting, fishing, camping. That's why I love Southern Utah. Keeps me busy, keeps me active. I can go out and I can see the wonderful area we live in.
Where's your favorite place to camp?
Kolob Mountain.
Kolob Mountain?
Kolob Mountain, yep. My family, my grandpa was a rancher, cattle rancher up there, and ran cows for many years, and we've got some property up there, and it's my piece of heaven. Go up there and just get away from the heat and the crowds, and take my kids up there and go fishing and enjoying the beautiful nights in the summer, and just enjoying the weather up there.
Well, you've got a wonderful life.
Well, it's been good so far.
Jimmy Stewart had nothing on you.
Well, you know, it's been a wonderful life so far.
Great. Tell me about your wife. How'd you meet?
We met at SkyWest. She was a dispatcher there, in operational flight control there also. We met there through that, and she's originally from the Salt Lake area, and her family moved down here when she was in high school. She went to Pineview, and we just met there. So.
Love at first sight, huh?
Love at first sight, yes, sir.
Well, that's a great way to go. You're running for office.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm running in the 7th District in Washington County School District. That is the area that encompasses basically the Green Valley and Dixie Downs area. Just something I've always wanted to be involved in the school district. Having 5 kids in school keeps me pretty involved in school, and I wanted to be able to give back to the community and to have a role in what happens in the schools and helping make decisions and kind of trying to mold the future of Washington County School District.
What do you think the most important role of a member of the board is?
I think the most important role of the member of the board is ensuring that our children's education is kept local. And what I mean by that is we see a lot of government influence in our children's education these days, and I think we need to bring that back towards not homeschooling, but back towards the parents being involved. And I think getting the families involved in education of their children is a important role right now.
What's the best way to do that?
Getting parents involved. You know, making sure that parents know what's going on in their schools, making sure parents are heard, making sure their voices are heard by the administration of the school.
Well, that's good. I hate to bring this up because it may not be appropriate, but I hear a lot of stuff about Common Core.
Mm-hmm.
You know anything about that?
I do. So, and I don't like Common Core. And I'll be pretty frank with you, I think it's a waste of taxpayer money to require government, to require our students to have a certain way, and our teachers a certain way that our students are taught and learned. When we let our teachers and we let our families more involved, every child learns differently. To have a common way to teach something may not always be the best way. I think bringing it down and letting the teachers teach is a lot more important.
What can we do to change it?
You know, I think it starts with the family, starts in the home, starts with the individual families teaching their children and going to the districts, going to the schools, going to the legislatures and pushing this Common Core out. Things like SAGE testing shouldn't be in our schools. Finding a way to fund our schools without requirements of government. The biggest issue we have right now in schools is the federal government gives us funding. However, to have that funding, we have to follow certain rules, such as Common Core. And to find a way to better fund our schools and not rely on that as much as a way that we can work towards eliminating the Common Core.
What are some ways we might be able to do that?
I've been involved recently in the last 2 years with our community councils at our high school, at Dixie High School. The community council, one of the biggest roles is to ensure that our school trust lands here in Utah, those funds are used appropriately. And the school trust lands funds are a great source of income for the schools. Ensuring that we can continue to develop that fund and to build the money up into that fund where we have money within our own state and within our own local governments is the best way to do that. I think that's where it starts, is making sure that the state and the schools are using that money to the best that they can and letting it develop and grow and not wasting that money.
Do teachers need higher pay?
Definitely. I think our teachers are the core to the education of our children. We see a lot of our administration make a lot of money. And they do a lot of hard work, and they probably deserve that. But our teachers also need to be recognized. Our teachers are there with our children all day long. They are the ones responsible to make sure that what we as parents want taught is taught. If our teachers aren't happy and aren't, making what they need to make where they can sustain it, we have a hard time bringing in decent teachers into the area. And if we pay our teachers a rate where we can keep them here, then we're going to see that long-term commitment from our teachers to better the education of the students.
What are some other things that need to be done?
In the schools, school safety right now is a big issue. I think here in Washington County, I think we're pretty much immune or maybe naive to the things that go on. We had this incident in Pineview High School a couple of weeks ago that I think woke a lot of people up. Luckily, nothing bad happened from that. I think it opened the eyes to a lot of people, but it could have been terrible. We need to find ways to better protect our children in the schools.
What are some of those ways that might be?
I think I work in the airline industry, and one of the things that I see all the time is when I go to my job, I have to have a visible ID on all the time at my job. If I'm not wearing that visible ID, I get questioned. We give our students student ID cards. I would definitely push to have our students wear those IDs all the time.
So they're visible?
So they're visible, so teachers and administrators can see who's supposed to be in the schools. Another thing that I really like is a lot of schools' designs now, all of the traffic coming into the school is filtered through the office. They're built that way. Once a student enters, or once somebody enters the school, they have to go through the office. It's just another line of protection from people entering the schools without, going through other ways. They have to go through that office, and it allows, a challenge to who's there and what's your business here. Do we want our parents into our schools? Definitely. We want parents coming into the schools. We want our parents talking to our students and talking to the teachers. But we want to make sure that only the people that belong there are there.
Should teachers be allowed to carry concealed weapons?
I advocate for that. State law allows it. I think our teachers...
So in Utah...
In Utah, our teachers are allowed that, and I support our teachers 100% that want to carry. I don't think it should ever be a requirement for a teacher to carry a concealed weapon or a weapon for any matter. I would like to see our teachers receive some additional training. One of the things that I would propose if I was if I'm elected to the school board would be training for our teachers that wish to have that training. If a teacher wants to carry a concealed weapon and they want additional training, let's find a way to get the teachers that training, whether it's some of our local gun businesses here. I know a couple of our gun stores do great training courses. Let's get them to step up and volunteer to train these teachers for free. And let's put our teachers through these courses so that they know how to defend their classrooms.
Is this an open seat, or is there an incumbent running for it?
There is an incumbent running.
Who is that?
It's Laura Hessen.
Is she not doing her job? Or?
I think Laura's done a good job. I just see a lot of ways that I could do a better job. I see, it's time for change. Laura's been there a long time.
How long?
She's been there, I think, 14 years. Laura has been the board president, and she has done a good job. I just feel that, I've got some younger kids in the school, and it's a different perspective on what's going on in our school districts. And I don't like people being in any position for a long time. If I was run for the board, I would only want to be there 2 to 3 terms, depending on what is wanted from the people in my district. I think that it allows other people to serve and other ideas to come forward.
When I interviewed Rand Paul last year or 2 years ago, there was a deal going around on the internet that Congress should be limited to 2 terms. Mm-hmm. One in office and one in the penitentiary. Do you believe in term limits?
I do. I think term limits need to be in effect. The problem is when somebody gets elected into an office, they immediately begin running to get reelected. When they shouldn't be running a campaign, they should be working for the people that elected them.
Well, that's a clever analysis of the situation.
Well, it seems that, that's the first thing a lot of people do, is they immediately start their campaign funds for their reelection, and that, to me, is not what they're there to be doing.
Tell me about your family individually, your children.
Sure. So my youngest, Emma, I'll start at the bottom. She's 8 years old. We call her the caboose. There's a reason she's the last. If she was the first, we would only have one child. Emma is Lexi. Lexi is 8 years old. She's very independent. She thinks she's 18. She loves to dance. She is in a local dance studio, and she excels in everything she does. She played softball the first time this year and broke her finger on the first game. Played the entire game with a broken finger.
What position?
It was just beginning softball. They moved her all around. So she played pretty much everywhere in that first game. She hasn't played since because with the broken finger, she's now got
Now this is your youngest?
My youngest, my 8-year-old. My next youngest is Ethan, and he's 12. He'll be 12 this year. Ethan is just a great all-around kid, a little athlete. He is built like a linebacker, we say. Solid kid, big heart, will do anything for anyone. And then my next oldest, Emma. Emma is 14. Well, she'll be 14 in October. Emma actually lives in Parowan with her mom. But Emma is a bookworm. She reads like you wouldn't believe. She reads at college level. You can't get her out of her room if she's got a book. So we have to, when we ground her, we make her watch TV in their living room instead of sending her to her room. That's kind of our little family joke. And then my next oldest, Jaron, he'll be 15 this year. Jaron is our athlete. He plays travel baseball, football. He's a second baseman and a pitcher in his baseball team. He played for Dixie travel ball, and he just moved over to SBA, which is another local travel team. Jaron is an amazing athlete. He's fast runner. He's an all-around hitter. He can do pretty much any position in baseball and football. He loves to play defense. He's a defensive back and a defensive end. And then my oldest, Thomas. Thomas is 17. He'll be 18 this year. He's a junior at Dixie High School, and he's also at Success Academy here at the college. So he's doing a little bit of both, doing some college classes. He plays in percussion at Dixie High School, and works full-time or part-time over at the movie theater. So he kind of is we call him our gopher. he's got the driver's license, and he runs all our errands for us. So
What about your wife?
my
Tell me
wife,
about her.
Keisha, she works in insurance. She's works for Brandon Hunt State Farm Insurance, and she's the office manager there, and is a full-time mom and a full-time employee for Brandon. So she works 2 jobs, I like to say. Usually 3, because the third one is taxi driver for all the kids when Thomas isn't around. I can't thank her enough. She's my rock. She's my foundation.
What about your parents? Tell me about them.
My mom and dad both live here in St. George. My mom works for IHC. She works in WorkMed. My dad retired from SkyWest 3 years ago. So he was a pilot at SkyWest, and he was the vice president of flight operations for a number of years. So they just both are enjoying life, and it's good to have them here. They're divorced. My stepdad's retired, and he runs a windmill museum on River Road. If you see all the windmills on River Road, that's his place. And my stepmom is retired also, so she's just a great all-around person.
Sounds like you've got a great family. Are you related to Walt Brooks?
I am related to Walt. We are second cousins.
Second cousins. Well, that's close enough to.
Yes, Walt. I helped Walt on his campaign 2 years ago, so I know Walt very well, and he's got a younger brother my age, so I kind of grew up with knowing the family very well.
Well, I ran into quite a few people, at church and other places, that are related to the Brooks. So
It's a big family.
big family.
Yep. In fact, I'm a Brooks on my dad's side, a Blake on my mom's side, and a Larson on what side of my family, and a Burgess. So I'm pretty much related to everyone. My ancestors were some of the first pioneers here in St. George.
Well, that's great. What else do you want to tell us about yourself?
I don't know. I like to stay busy. I'm always doing something else. I run a part-time cruise business.
Where do you cruise?
I cruise all over the place. I've been to the Mediterranean, I've been to Alaska, I've been to the Caribbean. We are going to Alaska this summer for our 10th anniversary, taking my wife on an Alaska cruise. I've been to Mexico many times. I love to put together things for families. It's kind of it's my passion on the side. It's kind of my hobby. So my real job is at SkyWest, and my hobby is helping people go on great vacations.
Does SkyWest, because you're the employee, let you fly for nothing?
Well, yes, they do. That's one of the benefits of the job.
Would you adopt me?
Sure, come on over. You know, the worst part is airlines today are so full, everything is standby travel, and so a lot of times we get left behind. We play travel roulette a lot, where we show up at the airport and don't know where we're going. It makes for some interesting vacations. Plan for France and end up in Fargo, is what I like to say.
Did you say you went to Indiana on your mission?
I did.
Tell me about that.
So I went to Indiana in 1995 to 97. For a boy from southern Utah in the desert, surrounded by mountains, getting out there and seeing no mountains and humid for 2 years was quite the change. When I first got off the airplane, it was in September, and I couldn't believe how humid it was. And then I couldn't believe how flat it was. I missed the mountains and I missed the red dirt. It was great to come home to both of them. But it was a great experience. It was great to meet the wonderful, God-fearing people of Indiana, some of the greatest people I ever met. It was just an all-around great experience.
How are the winters there?
Cold.
How cold do they get?
You know, a really quick, funny story. I served up around the northwestern part of Indiana, pretty close to Lake Michigan. And it would get in the wind chills in the negative 20s and 30s. One day, I remember we were out knocking on doors, and it was so cold I had a big heavy overcoat on, and the wind would just blow right through you. People would come to their screen doors, and they wouldn't open their doors. They would just wave us off. Nice to see you. No thanks. Have a good day. We would walk miles in the freezing, wind-blowing, cold weather and just go home that night, just be extremely cold. But I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It taught me the value of hard work.
Well, that's good. Do you ride horses?
I have. I'm not a big horse rider. I've ridden horses, but I don't own any horses, so I wish I did.
What about RVing?
So we spend a lot of time doing that. One of the things we love to do is go out on our side-by-side riding. We take our trailer out, we camp in it, we take our side-by-side out and ride all over the place. My kids love it. We love to just explore new areas. You know, I've lived here 40 plus years, and every time I go out I find something new. Whether it's out in the desert or up in the mountains, the things that are available around the area just are so amazing to me.
Do you have any delusions at this point about running for higher office?
Right now, no. I think school board is kind of where I want to be. I've never been in politics. I've never jumped into it. I am a county or state delegate, and I'm a precinct chair. So I had the experience of going to the state convention last week, which I don't know if it turned me off or made me more intrigued about politics. It was quite the interesting event.
Tell me about it.
You know, I went 2 years ago, and I went last year. I was a delegate 2 years ago at the presidential, or at the one 2 years ago when President Trump was elected. And that convention was, I took my 16-year-old, my son, he was almost 16 at the time. I took him with me, and he thought it was a great experience. We got to meet a lot of politicians. We got to shake hands. We got to sit in the meetings, which weren't very contentious. It seemed to go pretty smoothly. This year, he wanted to go again, so I took him up there. And we met a couple of people, and then the meeting started, and after about 4.5 hours, he looked over and he said, "Dad, this isn't anything like 2 years ago."
Did you leave?
We did not. We stuck it out. We left St. George at 3 in the morning on Saturday, and we got home at 1 in the morning Sunday morning. So I stuck out the entire convention, and the process, you know, I love it. It works. I'm very much support the delegate system and the caucus and convention system in Utah. It's just interesting to see both sides of it and to see the different factions in the party right now.
What can be done to make it better?
You know, that's a good question. I think a lot of it has to do with both sides need to give a little bit. You know, the count my vote side and the keep my voice side both need to come to a resolution of what works. I think one proposal I really liked was keep the caucus system, but always have a primary. And what I mean by that is the 2 top vote getters in the caucus go into a primary, regardless of what percentage the first one wins by. You know, right now the threshold is 60%, and if a candidate at caucus gets 60% of the vote, then they can bypass a primary election. And I think maybe if we did away with that and just took the 2 top candidates and put them in a primary, that would solve a lot of problems.
Well, that's a clever analysis.
You know, I've heard it. It's not my idea. I heard it from somebody else, but
Who'd you steal it from?
I don't remember. I read it online
Well,
somewhere.
claim
the other
it
day.
for your own.
It's now my idea. You can call that the Greg Brooks Initiative.
What do you think of Trump?
I love President Trump. Originally, I had some apprehensions about him in the very beginning. I really liked a couple of the candidates in 2016 right off the bat.
Who did you like?
I really liked Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was kind of my guy at the very beginning. I thought he would be great for the country, but I did get behind President Trump before he actually won the nomination. I just thought he could actually get things done. He seemed like somebody that'd be willing to go in and stick to his guns, and we've seen that. You know, he's got his baggage, obviously.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
Isn't there something in the Bible about not a man liveth and doeth good and sinneth not?
Exactly. You know, and as long as he can get the job done, that's what matters. He does what he says. You know, you look at his campaign promises, he's worked hard. You know, he's got a lot of opposition from both sides on some things. I think politicians don't like to change, even though they say they do or they act like it. Everything's about job protection, and he's not worried about his job. He's worried about making America great again, as he said. I think he truly loves America, and I think he truly wants to do what he thinks is best. But I think we can say that about anyone that serves as president, whether Democrat, Republican, Independent. I think they truly love America. It just may not be the vision that the other side has.
They're trying to do what they think is best, and it may be different from what some other
Exactly.
thinks is best.
Exactly.
That's a good analysis of it. Well, what else do you want to tell us?
Um,
Yours is a nonpartisan race.
Mine is a nonpartisan race. I think that makes it a little bit easier. It allows people to look past the politics. I think a lot of times we as citizens want to vote for our party. We support our party, we support our platform, things like that. When we have a nonpartisan race, we can look at the actual issues. One of my other big issues is I don't know if you're familiar with how the school board can raise taxes on us. The school board has complete control over taxation within the school district. They can raise taxes by majority vote in the school board, by a majority of 4. There's 7 members of the school board. 4 of them can vote to raise taxes on your.
What kind of taxes do they control?
It would be your property taxes, the school board taxes, and your property tax.
That doesn't have to go to a public.
It does not. So they have a truth in taxation meeting, and they can vote to raise the taxes.
Is there a limitation on that?
I don't know all of the limitations on that. I'd have to double check that. But what really concerns me about that is I don't like that. They shouldn't be raising taxes. We should allow our citizens to vote on it. I think bond initiatives are the better way to go. The school board should propose a bond and let the residents decide if they want to raise their taxes through a bond. And that way, when that bond expires, your taxes go back down.
Sounds good. Well, we're running out of time. What's your final word? We've got 1 minute.
Well, I look forward to this race. I look forward to working with the school board if I'm elected, and I look forward to just having a good, fun race with my opponent. We've talked, and we both care about Washington County. We want to make sure that our students are taken care of.
Well, Greg, thanks for being with us on A Story to Tell.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Greg Brooks, who's a candidate for the school district. Thank you for being with us on A Story to Tell from the campus of Dixie State University.